So don't be shy. Ask if you have a question. It's okay. No one will feel you're stupid in academia or even when you're working. And if they feel like you are, that's their problem.
Hello, fellow data science enthusiasts. Welcome today to another episode of the Data Query Podcast, where my co-host and I will be having a deep and beautiful conversation with one of the young bright minds in academia in the field of biomedical engineering. Though the human being may be the ultimate machine, but we believe we have a lot to learn from how to make machines more smart and more human-like. So we'll be having a deep, beautiful conversation with Dr. Leila Gamba, exploring her path from microbiology to a PhD in computational biology and biomedical engineering. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome, Dr. Leila.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
So, Dr. Leila, our audience and myself with William, we're very excited to have you, as we noted earlier, and we'd like to know, how you got into the field of computer programming, and can you also explain the concept of machine learning to a layman or to a 10-year-old kid?
Sure. So the way that my life turned to the path of computer science was luck. My background is in microbiology and my master was in biomedical engineering. And in none of them, I had any kind of data science or computer science knowledge at all. I just knew how to switch on a computer and switch it off. Then for my master degree, for my dissertation, I got to know my supervisor and I did a master dissertation and a thesis for my PhD with him in computer science department, but mostly in computational biology. So I was using the knowledge from the biology background as well. And if I want to explain machine learning and data science to a 10-year-old kid, I would give an example. So let's say humans learn from experience, and that experience is the data. So you can predict their behavior based on you can basically predict their behavior based on the experience. For example, let's say someone touches a heater and the heater is hot, they burn their hand. From the next time when they want to touch that heater, they are more cautious, and you're as an observer seeing that they're using that experience. What we do with machine learning is that we give the data from the past, the experience, and give it to the machine and want the machine to kind of predict the behavior of that model, of that data, based on this experience for the future. And that's how machine learning works.
I've never understood machine learning this in depth before. Anyway, so I would like to know, how does your background in biology and biomedical engineering inform your approach to data science and machine learning?
To be honest, I didn't use data science at all for my microbiology and biomedical engineering degrees. But for my PhD, I was using this knowledge when I was looking at the data, and basically I knew what I was looking at and I knew what I was asking the machine to show me. And that helps, because if you're doing a computational biology degree and you don't know the biology part of the work, then it's kind of difficult to know if the result that you're looking at actually makes sense. So for me, I guess the best thing I got from the microbiology and data science together was that I knew what I was looking at when I was looking at the data.
Wow, that sounds interesting, Dr. Leila. But combining biology and machine learning is really, two broad fields, and with so many things evolving. So it's interesting. How do you stay, with the latest development and advancement in data science and machine learning?
So when I'm using machine learning methods for my work, if a method is working for me, I don't actively go look for new alternatives. But if the method is not working or it doesn't give me what I want, I go look up at other people's work, and always there is someone who has done something so exciting. So I try to apply that to my work. I'm still not at the stage that I can create new machine learning methods yet, but hopefully I will get there. But at the moment, what I do is try to understand other people's works and apply them to my work.
Yeah, for sure. I believe that's like the best way to learn in this field, because so many people have worked on projects and you can learn from them, you can learn from their mistakes and everything. I mean, there's a lot to learn from others, I would say so.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, speaking about projects and all, you've spoken about your PhD. So I would like to know, is there any specific projects that you worked on during your PhD that you used machine learning techniques?
The closest I got to machine learning was optimization that I got in my PhD. So I used two different methods of optimization to compare them and see which of them gives me the results that I'm looking for in a shorter time for one of my models. But most of the other parts that I used for my PhD were data analysis rather than machine learning.
Okay, that's interesting. Talking about data analysis on rather than machine learning. So, what are some of the tools and technologies that you use during your PhD on, also sometimes on a day-to-day basis, and then particular preference you have for some?
So in terms of tools, I used Python and R for my thesis. R for data analysis and Python for optimization. And to be fair, I prefer R because, R has RStudio and makes life so easy. And Python doesn't have a thing. And when I learned R, I was so enthusiastic. Everything was new and I loved it. But I learned Python in a very short time only for my project. So I didn't get to explore Python as much as I explored R.
Okay. So Python, you learned R first before Python, if I may understand. Okay, cool. Great.
So you use Python and R, and you said you preferred R.
Yes.
So would you say, so for someone that is trying to also get into the field, what would you also, let's say, suggest for them to start with? I mean, it's based on your preference. So I'm sure you can suggest for someone that has no programming background, because we didn't have any programming background. So
that's
what would you also recommend for someone to start with? Should I start with R or Python, or I should do both?
Definitely not both. One by one is always the best. I guess to me, R was much more straightforward. Especially for machine learning, R is very easy to understand. It's not something that, okay, what is that I'm writing as a code? It's very simple and it's easier to understand. So if someone doesn't have the background like myself, I would suggest go with R first.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And thank you for that. Also, since you're in the field of academia, and you've done your PhD, I'm sure you've read a lot of articles, you've seen a lot of publications. So is there like one publication or contribution that you've seen that you feel in the field of data science that you feel will be very useful for others to also look at or impact others' life? Like, so is there any publication or any contribution that you've seen in the field of data science that you would like to share?
The focus of my PhD was computational biology. So the articles that I read mostly were focusing on these two rather than machine learning or data science. I learned machine learning and data science in a class, in a course. And because I didn't have much time to go around, and especially that it wasn't the main focus of my PhD, I couldn't attend many conferences, especially that it was pandemic as well. So unfortunately, I didn't get the chance to read many articles or go to many conferences that were focusing on machine learning. And I guess it's kind of a miss on my part, because that was a part of my PhD that I actually enjoyed the most. But they wouldn't let me focus on it because it wasn't the focus of my project.
Okay, interesting. And just to follow up, just to build on your previous response, so how do you see, let me say, like the field of data science and machine learning evolving in the next 5 years? So if somebody was to get into this field right now, in relation to your background in biomedical engineering, what do you feel like an early researcher should like focus on, or what problems do you feel like need more researchers in relation to the evolution in the next 5 years of this field?
Well, machine learning is a very fast-growing field, and what I see from it is, as time passes, one of the things that basically we are using machine learning for is predictions, and as time passes, these predictions are becoming more and more accurate. And I guess maybe in 5 years, the result of the machine learning methods are going to be so accurate that is kind of dangerous, because when they are accurate enough, we are going to rely on them too much. And then when the machine makes a mistake, we don't see that anymore. But it is a very, very fast growing field. It's fascinating.
Okay, for sure. Now, I mean, in the job market, even that's one of the main things with the highest, I would say, demand, data science and machine learning, because
Yes.
everything now is being automated. So artificial intelligence, machine learning is very useful in every industry now. So also, I'm sure you've worked with a couple of people and you've experienced working with so many people from different backgrounds and all that. Would you say you've faced any challenges working with people from different backgrounds? And would you also recommend collaboration with other people when working on data science projects and machine learning projects? What's your view with that?
Well, I had to collaborate with people who did not have my background, because, as I said, my PhD was in computer science department and I was the only biologist there. When I was writing my first article, I realized what it meant to be a computational biologist in computer science department. I had to communicate to pure computer scientists who had no idea about biology and trying to give them a message over or to make them understand my project. At the beginning, I thought the things that I know about biology are common knowledge, but as time passed, I realized there are so many words that we use in biology and also in computer, and they have completely two different meanings. So as time passed, I learned how to communicate my way better and break down my words to as simple as possible so other people could understand. And I think when you're working in data science, it's kind of inevitable not to discuss with someone from another background, especially if you're a data scientist in a field like biology or healthcare. If you're coming from a data science background, you are already in an interdisciplinary environment. So it's always best to know first your own things and try to understand the other people better, and always ask questions if there is something you don't understand or there's something you feel like it doesn't make sense based on the things you know.
It makes a lot of sense, and because I mean you always have this domain knowledge and also, let me say, technical proficiency. So when working in such teams, like, what is your take in terms of, let me say, team formation? Do you think it's more important, let me say, when working in interdisciplinary teams, to have more of statistical proficiency, domain knowledge, or technical skills? So, and also for somebody also getting into the field, do you feel like it's more important to have domain knowledge, like yourself? You had the biology background, and somebody coming, let me say, from a pure technical background also coming into these teams? How does it like actually blend? So if you're to form a team, how do you actually try to ration this in terms of, let me say, professional skills and statistical skills and technical skills? And do you also think domain knowledge or engineering proficiency is more important when seeking for your first role?
Interesting question. It's kind of based on my own experience that engineering proficiency or domain knowledge are the things that you can learn over time. So especially when you are starting your career, I don't think any line manager would expect you to know all of this when you start your work. So I guess to begin with data science, the main thing is to know what you're doing with data science. So your technical skills come first. And data science is a very vast field. So you cannot possibly know everything about it when you're just starting. Maybe in 10 years, 20 years, you're going to know 90% of it. But when you start, you might know only like 20%, but that should be enough. So I guess the first thing when you're starting your career in data science, the first thing that is important is your technical skills. And the other skills come along as time passes and you gain more experience working in a team.
Wow. That was a very good advice, and I'd say a very brilliant suggestion. And talking about advice and suggestion, would you say, have you experienced any challenges mentoring others in the field of data science? I mean, related to your background, that's computational biology, engineering. Have you found anything challenging and rewarding in this form of relationship, this mentorship relationship?
Yeah, so I was co-supervising a student from data science on my first year of PhD. He was a pure data scientist, no background or understanding of biology. And the most challenging part was to connect with him and make him understand what I wanted from him. So his master project was to help my PhD project to analyze some data. And I needed him to understand what I'm looking for so he could look for them. It was my first year. I still hadn't learned that these communication issues happen. So it took me a couple of weeks to realize how I need to explain something to him. It helped me a lot because later on, when I had seminars or conferences that I was presenting, usually my audience were computer scientists or data scientist people. So I learned how to break down my work to very simple words so everyone could understand. And I think all started when I was mentoring that one student who taught me that if I know something, that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone else knows that too.
That's very interesting. And also, I mean, looking out for others that may like to, let me say, come under you as a mentee. So what advice will you give, or what are you seeking for, let me say, in a mentee?
I think the most important advice I would give to someone who I'm mentoring is that ask questions, because I didn't. When I had my first meetings with my supervisor, there were so many things I was confused about, and I was too shy to ask because I thought if I ask, he's going to feel like I'm stupid, and I didn't want that. So I had to go research on myself, and then later on he realized that there are so many things I don't understand, and then he was criticizing me on why don't you ask when you have a question. So don't be shy, ask if you have a question. It's okay. No one will feel you're stupid in academia or even when you're working. And if they feel like you are, that's their problem. You need to know your stuff.
Okay. That's really interesting, because sometimes, I mean, not ask questions because you feel like you look dumb and you want to avoid having a dumb face. And so we're going to shift now to more technical questions. And those are some of those questions, like, I feel like, let me say, for newbies into the field of machine learning and data science, sometimes it's a little bit tricky. So how can you discuss, let me say, like the challenges and benefits of using decision trees and random forests in data science and machine learning?
This decision tree is one of the simplest methods of prediction in machine learning. It's very simple to understand and very simple to visualize. But when it comes to high-dimensional data sets or the basically huge data sets, they are not the best option. they cause overfitting of the training data to the prediction, and that is not what we want when we are going for machine learning and predictions. So it's not good for regression. It also needs more time to train the model. On the other hand, random forest is good for regression and classification tasks, but again, the large number of trees can make it extremely slow. Visualization of it would be a problem, and the training might be fast, but the prediction is what time consuming with random forest.
Perfect. Also, to delve more into the technical aspect of machine learning, could you also discuss the challenges and considerations of using explainable AI in data science and machine learning?
Explainable AI tends to make humans understand why it has reached the conclusion it has, or why it is showing that prediction that it is showing. It promises more efficiency, and it is interpretable by experts. So all of these are good. But usually explainable AI is used by government or institutes that are handling sensitive data. And these companies may be completely relying on the predictions that the explainable AI is providing, and that might cause problem. If I'm giving an example, let's say they use XAI for criminology, and based on the data given to it, XAI comes to the prediction for a sentence for a specific crime. While this prediction might seem completely logical, it might not be in the same line as the values of that society. So it causes problems. While it is a good method for understanding AI much simpler and more efficiently, it can also cause issues if it is handled wrongly.
Yeah, that's a lot of, one of the biggest challenges in the field, relying so much on, on AI tools and not being able to explain what is going on.
Yeah.
And so going on to, so how you also explain the concept of generative models and their implication in data science and machine learning, especially in the sensitive field, like human lives, which computational biology is very used in that sense. So how do you explain this concept of generative models and the application in data science and biology in particular?
Well, I myself haven't used their generative models for my project. However, I love the concept because I love models, and even though I do some other types of modeling, I was always interested to work in this. But I'm aware of some fields that generative models are being used, for example, in bioinformatics or protein design, that they give data to the machine from the proteins that we've got, and then the machine must predict any other possible way that protein can exist, and then check how efficient that protein can be on computer. And if it is efficient in computer, they can move on to biological labs and basically synthesize that protein.
Yeah, that's something I came across also sometimes listening to deep learning podcasts, in which one of the breakthroughs also with using generative models to predict protein formation, and I found it very complex because I was lost in that. So I don't really understand. But what makes it really challenging, that let me say for a normal human being, but let me say you have computer that can do it more efficiently than, I'll say, even those that are very high into academia and research. So what is it that makes it complex?
What makes the generative models complex?
Yeah, especially for protein formation, the case you just gave, like.
I think one thing that, again, in protein design field, that makes it so complex is that it is working based on the data that we give it, and it can give so many new models based on that data. So analyzing each and every one of them is going to be time consuming, and let's say you have 1,000 protein models and you have to go for each of them to see if they're actually what you're looking for, if they will work in a biological setting, or if they actually will give you what you want. So I think one of the challenges for generative models is the output of them can be overwhelming and too many.
Right.
Great. Also, you spoke about how you love models, and so I'm sure you are interested. I'm very interested in the kind of models you love, and I'm sure our listeners too are also interested in the models that you love and the ones that you prefer working with.
Well, I generally like modeling. The method I used for my PhD was Petriness, which is super simple. The reason I love it is because when you model something in computer, you can see how it would behave over time much faster in computer. And my idea was that when you have this model in computer, you can predict something that can happen over a year in 2 hours in your computer and see if it's actually worth doing in the lab. Coming from biological background, we had to wait a long time to see the results, and there were times that we were disappointed because we didn't get the result we wanted. And I always thought, if we have these models in the computer, then we can save time and money. So why not?
How about someone starting out in the field of data science and machine learning, especially someone with a background in biomedical data, or anyone from a different background? What advice will you give the person, someone starting out in the field of data science? Is there any advice or something that you've learned from your experiences? Because obviously you know a lot. You've been in academia for so many years. You've worked with several companies. You've got experience, so you've learned from the field. So would you like to share to our listeners what they should look out for when they're starting out in the field of data science?
Sure. First, if you've never been coding or have been involved in any kind of data science, it can look very scary. Like the first time I saw coding, I was terrified. I thought, this is too much. I can never do something like that, especially that I'm coming from biology background. I have no idea about coding. And when I started it, it actually turned out to be one of the greatest things I've ever learned. So don't be scared. The other thing is, when you are moving from data science towards more biomedical science, biomedical data science, you're going to hear a lot of Latin words from biology that sound very terrifying. You might not understand what they mean, or you might not know what everyone else is talking about. That's okay. It happens. Give yourself the permission not to know, but don't give yourself the permission not to understand. They're two different things. So if you don't know something, that's okay, but look for it. So don't be scared of the codes or the Latin words that you're hearing. Once you understand them, just try to have fun and enjoy coding and machine learning and visualizing all your data and play around with your codes. I think that's a lot of fun by itself.
So, Dr. Leila, are there any resources or let me say websites, YouTube channels, or books that you may suggest for those that get into the field of data science to improve their learning and also to get some hands-on practice?
There are so many resources for data science. And I guess if you are just starting, if you're comfortable with like reading stuff, go for, there are books for data science and using R. There are this, I forgot the name of the book, but it's usually, the cover is white and red and it talks about how to use R and RStudio. That's one way around it. And the other thing that you can use for improving your knowledge in data science is DataCamp, which helps a lot.
Okay. And not anything related to, let me say, data science and machine learning, but which book have you read that has had an impact on your life and that you may suggest to our readers to read? Because I'm always on the lookout for books that can help me improve as a person as a whole. Do you have any suggestion that comes to mind?
I think the book Data Science from Scratch is a good one. It's simple, and as well, it's obvious. It tells everything from the very beginning of how data science starts and how you can improve in it and how you can learn it.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Dr. Leila, and thanks for the piece of advice. Is there anything we haven't touched that you would like to, let me say, shine light on or talk about? We've had a great conversation and we're very grateful for having you on the show. So if there's anything you'd like to touch on, please just go ahead.
I think the only thing I'd like to say is that don't give up, and don't compare yourself with other people, because again, I did that. I came from biology background. I started coding and everything was so scary, and I was seeing my students were coding much better than myself, and I was like, what kind of a teacher am I? How is it even possible? And by experience, I learned people learn on different pace and people are different. While I wasn't the best in coding, I had a knowledge that my students or the people around me didn't have. So don't compare yourself. Don't think you're not good enough. Just try to enjoy the process.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Leila. William, I don't know if you have anything to conclude on. I think we're all good to go.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
It's been a pleasure having you on the show. But to add on what you said, then again, that's when we talk about the imposter syndrome, where you feel like you don't know enough. And I'm very glad you mentioned that, because you can't know it all. You always feel that way. What you can do best is work on the areas that you feel like you're deficient in. And we are very glad that you've shared so many insights with us, and I'm sure our listeners are very glad as well. It's been exciting having you on the show. We are very much grateful.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.